It's Tuesday morning. This is where bold voices meet urgent conversations. The weekend is behind us. Monday has shaken off the dust, and now it's Tuesday, the day we get into stride. It's a day for sharpening our focus, confronting the questions that matter, and leaning into stories that shape how we live, how we lead, and how we learn. Whether you're talking about politics or policy, culture and identity, justice or gender, or the power plays even happening behind closed doors, we are right here to unpack it with honesty, with courage, and with perspective. So wherever you're joining us from, know this, you're in the right place. This is a space where the truth gets a mic and silence gets disrupted. This is Jasiri. But first, let's welcome back our mama, the one and only Lala of our heart. We missed you.
I missed the show. I tried to watch some of the playbacks on YouTube because sometimes I'm just in transit and I'm trying to, follow the timing.
Listen, I've never seen a busy bee like Lola. I'm traveling to rest. Vacation was not restful. Wesley next. Maybe the other one next. Gloucestershire next. Cheltenham next. You were just globe-trotting, Lola.
So most of the time I go on vacation is either workation most of the time. Yeah. But when I go on proper vacations, I hardly go anywhere. I just sit in the house, watch Netflix. But this time, I said, and this Japan thing, I've been going to the UK for a long time. Yeah. And I've never moved outside London before. Really? So this time I said no, I wanted to explore a little. So I did go to a couple of places. I went to Manchester, I went to Gloucester, I went to Portsmouth, I went to Basingstoke.
What are some of the things you did?
Huh?
What are some of the things you did during vacation?
My God.
Vacation. Well, for this one, I just went about. I was in trains half of the time. And I really, it just set me thinking. And
about
hoping
Nigeria.
and praying that a time should come that transportation should not be so hard. Yeah. Because in the UK, there are options. All these places that trains get to, buses get to too.
Yeah.
So if you can do either or. Wow. It is so disheartening that we are still suffering for something we should not be suffering for. Tidy roads. I'm not telling you that there are no potholes in UK. No, there are. But I've seen them maintain. Half of the time you see they'll be walking overnight. Because I did pass some roads that the Google Map will tell you walk ahead. And they are maintaining the roads. So I'm not telling everybody that, UK is perfect. No. I just mean they have a maintenance culture. And that's something we need to imbibe in our country, honestly.
I had to write a freelance article a few years ago about this, the silence or the hum of generators in Nigeria, about the electricity crisis in Nigeria. And this fact also always stuck with me. A lot of people don't know, Nigeria had electric street lights before a large percentage, a large part of the Western world. We had electric street lights.
Street lights?
In the UK.
Wow.
Where did they go?
That article, I'm gonna bring it out. I'll post that article. I'll post that article. I had to do the research for it. I did it for an international organization. My first freelance article. I was like, I can't do this. We'll talk about things we do,
Yeah.
When I was finding out the facts, I was like, really? So when you think about where we are,
you wonder, where did that package broken? When I talk to my dad, these are people who come from, they're people who don't want to visit Lagos now. My father now wants to visit Lagos. He tells you, you have to locks a lot. Because when I tell you, tell me about Lagos in your time, you remember. I think that's where those times where
my
that
mom's
was
friend, Sisi's mom will go from London straight to Ogbomoso. She said she just cannot cope with the hustle of Lagos. And being the commercial nerve center of the country, we really need to do better on the basic things. It's so painful that the things we're celebrating are things that are commonplace. It should be the meat of every Nigerian, every Lagosian, that our roads are good, they are pliable. You can't plan anything with, now abroad you can plan, you can have ETA. But this one is till the ancestors release you on the road.
I tell you, when I was coming this morning, I saw there was traffic.
I was just asking now that what? So apparently we are some kind of neighbors to a political party, and apparently something is going on on the road behind us, parallel to us. Because I was like, I'm seeing NSCDC, I'm seeing police. It's when my journalistic instincts are like, what's going on?
It's when none of us
because I
was coming from the airport and I was like,
what is this?
What's
Now
going
I just heard the music. I was like, okay, oh, makes sense. Let's move on, ladies. Now, while we have the privilege of welcoming Lolo home, there are people who will never have this same privilege again. Today, the sun has risen on another day of mourning for members of the Yelewata community in Benue State. Over the weekend, the community was attacked, like others before it in the state. And reports say anywhere from 100 to 200 people were killed. We've spoken to survivors while the president has talked tough, and now the Inspector General of Police has arrived in Makurdi, the state capital. Joining us now is News Central's Joshua Imarayi, who is in Benue State. Joshua, good to see you, but again, not under these circumstances.
All right, Joshua, some reports have said around 200 people were killed. Others say around 100. What can you tell us about the numbers of the victims from this weekend's attack?
Well, one thing I know for sure is that residents and community members of Yelewata district in Guma local government, Benue State, are still reeling from the losses that they've suffered as a result of this deadly and dastardous attack by armed herdsmen. Well, I confirmed with them, and they told me, a reliable source within that community member told me that they've buried hundreds of their community members, and there are still corpses lurking around in one house, burnt or the other, and they are still counting their losses in terms of properties, in terms of lives, and even in terms of the welfare of the residents, particularly in that area. So the losses is something we cannot place our fingers on, but we know, one thing we know for sure is that the numbers of lives lost to this incident, they are spanning into hundreds. I can confirm that to you because I saw for myself. I saw dead bodies. I saw bodies burnt to crisp. I saw bodies burnt beyond recognition. And it will even interest you to know that I saw bones equated to ashes. This is the plight of many of them in Yelewata area of Guma local government in Benue State. The story is not one to recount. It is a sad incident that if you as a person should visit that community, you won't know when you just lose it all and burst out in tears.
For what you had to experience, Joshua, but thanks to you, we're hearing directly from the survivors of this attack. And in their own words, what have they told you about this attack and how it played out? Can you tell us, please?
Can you take that again, please? I didn't quite catch that.
Yes, I said sorry about what you had to experience. But thanks to you, we are hearing directly from the survivors of this attack. But in their own words, what have they told you about how this attack played out, about what they've experienced?
Well, a resident who is particularly resident in that community told me that in the wee hours of Friday, they were surprised by attacks by armed men, armed herdsmen particularly. And what happened started like this. They were sleeping in the wee hours of Friday, then all of a sudden they heard gunshots. Now trying to find out what was going on, the policemen attached to a division in that particular area actually approached the situation, and they met that particular situation with extreme gunfire. Well, they were overpowered, and the lost count of bullets they actually expended in that procedure. However, while they were attacking from the forward, unknown to them that several armed herdsmen were attacking from behind. They were moving from houses to houses, shooting down, cutting down human, burning houses, burning properties. It seems like a coordinated attack, because one thing I gathered from them was that this particular persons came, it was all planned. They came in a militarized way. They came with heavy weapons. They came with even flamethrowers. One told me that they even brought one particular gun that instead of shooting bullets, it shot fire, and many of them were touched by this fire. So this is the situation. Now it now raises the question of who are these men? Are they just herdsmen, or it goes beyond that? Now we are asking, well, that particular area is along the river basin of the River Benue. So that particular area is good for pasture as well as farming. But unfortunately, that particular land is being contested. It has been contested for since 2003 particularly. And this situation, they've been having spades, gathers, and little issues of this kind, but it has not been as extreme as this. They even confirmed to me that in the process of fighting against these assailants, the policemen killed one in the process. And it will interest you to know that community members in that community recognize that particular person as someone who has been resident in that community with them. They see him in their farms, he sells honey. Well, it was shocking to see that he was one of those who perpetrated the doom that they saw on Friday night / Saturday morning.
Joshua, let's stay with the security forces and the agencies. I'm particularly concerned about that because when that started, didn't they have an idea, something, a sign, something must have triggered something? Didn't they just have just a snippet of what was about to happen? Maybe a change in, some people know that, okay, they notice that there's a change in the weather, change in something. Now, these security agencies and forces, according to what you just told us, they were overpowered by the headsmen, the armed headsmen. Okay. After the deed was done, when did they arrive at the community, like in the aftermath of the attack?
Well, this particular issue raises so many questions about the state of intelligence among security agencies. Well, they gave the excuse, particularly the soldiers, the defense team gave the excuse that they were in trying to ward off some of the bandits in Nasarawa area. You know, Nasarawa shares boundary with Benue State. They were trying to ward off bandits in that area, that before they could run down to Yelewata, it was a sorry state. Well, another question one should ask is, how regular is the exchange of intelligence between the police and the military? It raises another question as to if they are readily available to share intelligence with one another. But notwithstanding, one thing the military acknowledged is that among those people settling in that community, there were saboteurs. That this is a clear case of sabotage. That though they might not know, that as the event unfolded, and even at that particular time, the security operatives came, there are still saboteurs in their midst. And the military affirmed that they were going to sweep out these particular persons who are responsible for this sabotage and ensure that that particular place is safe. Well, the residents are holding them to their words and praying. But notwithstanding, I can tell you for sure that most persons in that community are taking flight. Why? There seems not to be comfortable that if we could have a police station amongst us and this particular incident happened, what will happen thereafter? It means that they are not in safe hands. That is their reason at this particular time. So they are hopeful. However, those who are taking heed are taking heed, and those who are wary are running away. I saw a man with his family, took his mattress, his cooking pot, and fled the community. Well, the presence of the security men on ground is not much a guaranteeing factor that could keep these people's minds at rest.
Inspector General of Police Kayode Ikechukwu is on ground. What do we know about where he's been or what he's saying? Has he visited the community? What has he said regarding finding the perpetrators of this attack and others? Let's not also forget, I believe some security personnel also lost their lives in about a week or two ago in Benue State as well in the situation surrounding these attacks. And now we're expecting the president in Benue tomorrow. He said he is making adjustments to his schedule to be able to visit the people of Benue. But particularly for the IGP who's on ground now, what do we know about what he's saying and where he's been?
Well, the IGP visited the governor in his government house. That is the person of Governor Hyacinth Alia. He paid condolence visit to his house and also came to the scene. The IGP also held meetings with leaders of that community, clergymen, as well as security operatives in that area. And he made a statement. That statement has not gone down well with Nigerians, particularly across social media platforms. Even in the state here, they don't seem to be comfortable with that particular statement. And the IGP said, and I quote, that for this particular incident that has happened, 100 has been forestalled, that it has given them or maybe the tactics and idea to forestall many that will come. Now, so many people are questioning that, will you wait until something of such nature happen? Because whether you like it or not, what happened in that particular area is a pogrom. And if it should be allowed to slide, that means the security situation of that particular area is not in safe hands. Well, the IGP said they've deployed tactical operatives and units across several parts of that area to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order. We are holding him to his words, and we only hope that he comes into action and bring those words he says into fruition, and maybe arrests will be made, because the one thing that is important is holding those people responsible for this situation accountable, and it's one thing Nigerians and particularly residents in Benue are looking up to.
These are very difficult, things to hear from Benue State. And particularly, it's even more disheartening that we heard that some of the attacks had been against people who already have been displaced are in IDP camps. So if IDP camps are not safe, that means these people have nowhere to sleep, nowhere to go. What is happening to those who are displaced? Because it's like adding coal to fire. I don't know.
Well, it is a sorry state for most people who are residents in that area, because they've had to suffer from these attacks. Some of them have fled 1, 2, 3 communities and ended up in Yelewata, thinking they finally found the place of solace and peace. But unfortunately, in their sleep, they were attacked. Well, this raises another question about the humanitarian response and security situation around these corridors, particularly the River Niger basin, the Benue, the Nasarawa, and several north-central areas as regards as the insecurity situation is happening. Well, they are hopeful that they will be given a better place. But it is noteworthy that I should tell you that these particular persons have not been given a conducive place to rest their head. They've taken solace in churches, they've taken solace in police stations, and they've also taken solace in schools as in that particular area. And it has not been a conducive place to lay their heads. Now, talking about their food, how are they feeding? Because most of these persons lost their means of livelihood to this fire that was set up by these assailants. Most of them lost their family, and even old men, aged parents, they lost their entire children to this particular incident. So it has been a case of worry as regards the humanitarian response. One thing we know for sure is that budgets are being made for these things, and as well appropriations are being made also, and also the money have been dispensed to the necessary quarters. Now, what we are asking as Nigerians is, how well are this money being put into action? Because we can't hear about millions, billions running into maybe trillions being budgeted for humanitarian response, and people here are now the only one giving humanitarian aid to their fellow neighbor, not the government. This is the responsibility of the government, as well as other organizations who are well-meaning to Nigerians. And the question arises again, how well are they spending these allocations to safeguard the lives of these people, to give them succor in the time needed, and to ensure that they are comfortable, because it is not their own making they lost their means of livelihood to this situation. So that is the case here in Yelewata in Benue State.
Joshua, thank you so much for the enlightened explanation and being on ground in Yelewata in Benue State. Thank you for shedding more light on the situation there. We'll talk to you again soon. Now we're not shifting gears on Jasiri because this conversation is too critical. Whole families wiped out, adults and children burned to death. We can't afford to look away. When we come back, we'll talk from farms to graves, the unfolding tragedy in Benue. And our guest today is Professor Patrick Ukase. Stay with us here on Jasiri.
Welcome back to the show. We want you to join the conversation on social media. We are at News Central TV. Now it's time we face the grim reality unfolding in Benue State. A crisis marked not by statistics, but by charred families, burnt harvest, and communities forced into hiding. Over the weekend in Yelewata, Guma local government area of Benue State, gunmen stormed homes and the local market, killing at least 100 to 150 people, many trapped and burned inside their own homes, including children. Survivors describe waking to gunfire, watching their loved ones perish, and fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Entire harvest, all that sustained the food baskets of Nigeria, were razed to the ground. This massacre is yet another brutal flashpoint in the simmering herder-farmer conflict over land and resources. And while President Bola Tinubu has condemned the attack and promised action, survivors, human rights groups, and religious bodies say it's not enough. They've called for a state of emergency rule and immediate protection on the ground as the toll of death and displacement mounts. This is more than Benue's tragedy. It is our failure, our test, and our moment to act as a nation. Joining us now is Professor Patrick Ukase. He's former head of history and international relations from Kogi State. He's joining us to go through this. Professor Ukase, welcome to Jasiri. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Professor Ukase, Nigeria is still reeling from the news of the killings that happened over the weekend. But before we start, we need to really bring this situation home for many people. Our correspondent Joshua Imarayi spoke to some of the survivors. Michael Aja says he lost 20 family members. 20. That's 20 from one family. That is quite a lot. But let's hear it from Michael Aja.
My people, my family members, they died in this house. 11. And some died in the other stores. 8. Some died here. My whole family members that died yesterday, day before yesterday, on that very day, there were 20. That is my own family members. I'm not talking about any other thing. That is my own family members. This is my store. Those shops are my stores. Those places are being burned.
Please walk.
Those places, this place is being burned. Here and up, my house is up there. That place also is burned. And the store where I pack my goods, I store my goods everywhere, has burned. They burn my clothes, they burn everything, they burn our food. All my family members, what we came out with is our clothes, what we wear. And I, standing here, this is what I came out with. And this is the only thing I have. There's no anything with me.
To listen to testimonies like this and not get emotional. But Professor Ukase, this is not the first attack in the community in Benue that Benue has experienced in recent time, and it likely won't be the last. These attackers have been going on for years, but some say they've increased in frequency and intensity in the past several months. Many outside Benue and the Middle Belt region don't fully understand what's going on. Some locals say these clashes stem from long-standing herder-farmer conflict that's tied to land and resources. But enlighten us, what are the truths in this situation?
Once again, thank you for having me. Last week I was on your program, a morning show program, where I tried to provide some historical perspective to this crisis. And the relationship between, but first and foremost, let me say that I'm from Benue State, and I'm really happy that your reporter on ground has given a comprehensive report about what is happening in the state. And I want to applaud the work that you people are doing. It's been wonderful. So I want to establish that I'm from Benue State. And this has been with us for close to 2 decades. The relationship between the farmer and herder in Benue State, the Tiv and the Fulani, the Idoma and the Fulani in Benue State, has been peaceful over the years. But by 2001, 2002, we started having what is called, what a lot of people prefer to call skirmishes. These skirmishes was over, cows straying into farms of people within the community. And at that point, there were all kinds of disagreements those conflicts and disagreements were settled. But by 2011, it took a different dimension. The dimension it took all the way from the middle belt and even to the southern part of the country during the dry season for their herding activities. But once the rainy season comes, they will go back to the northern part of the country. Now, we had a situation from 2010, 2011, where these herders will come and remain and will refuse to go back. So anytime the farmers cultivate their crops, the herds will stray into the farms and eat whatever the farmers have produced. And this thing started causing a whole lot of disagreements and conflict. And subsequently, the herders started attacking, the Fulani herders started attacking our people and trying to take over land. Benue is a fertile crescent. And what we see, like a number of analysts have tried to explain, is an attempt by the Fulani herders to take over land because they believe that this land is fertile for their grazing activities. And that was why, if you recall, in 2017, well over 70 persons were killed and were buried in a mass grave. That burial the leadership of Governor Samuel Otom. And at that point, an anti-grazing law was enacted to ensure that anybody that wants to graze in the state, ranches, is able to ranch, get a piece of land and ranch his or her cows. And so that was the action the government took. And the government also went further, the previous government also went further to ensure that they established a security outfit to ensure that this law is implemented. We have been experiencing for close to 2 decades. And like your reporter said, we have had people in IDP camps for close to 2 decades. There are people that have not gone to their villages for close to 20 years. Even when they have loved ones to go and bury, they need to pay the services of security men to take them to those villages to be able to bury their loved ones. That is the extent to which the crisis, the dimension that the crisis has taken in Benue State. And that is what we have been facing, like I said earlier, for close to 2 decades.
Right, Professor. So the president has spoken finally on the attack, and he has labeled it senseless bloodletting, and therefore he has ordered decisive action to be taken. The Inspector General of Police has arrived in Benue State, that's no news, and he promises to stop the violence. But we know the promises and statements we have heard before. What concrete measures have been delivered or withheld? Now that is the question.
You've already answered the question because we've heard these instructions. If you read the president's press release yesterday from Bayo Onanoga, there was a statement where the president said he has directed for them to implement his earlier directives. And then you begin to ask, why must we always wait for people to die before we begin to implement directives? And if you remember, this thing took place on Friday night. This bloodletting, this unnecessary killings and bloodletting took place on Friday. It took the federal
All right, it's looking like we have some technical issues there, but you asked the question about the measures that have been delivered or withheld, and he said that the question had been answered. I think he was just about to note that it had taken the president about 48 hours to respond. The Pope, delivering his Sunday message, spoke before our president spoke. And there's one thing he said that's striking me, that there are people in Benue who have been in IDP camps for 20 years. When we think of internally displaced persons, we think of the north. We think of Borno, we think of maybe Zamfara, we think of the Boko Haram situation in Lakurawa and all of that. we don't necessarily think of the middle, but we don't associate IDPs with this particular region of the country. But obviously, this is a crisis of 20 years in the making that Nigeria has somehow not solved. Now it has taken new life.
And how is left up for that long?
IDPs are not supposed to be something in perpetuity.
Is it that nobody is looking at it, nobody is amplifying the voices of these people? Because if it has been ongoing for so long, how did it stay there?
Okay, we have Professor Ukase back. You're answering Catherine's question in terms of the concrete measures that had been delivered or withheld. I'd want you to quickly finish that because we need to take a break, and then we'll still talk about what the president is saying or not.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was saying that the chief of army staff was in Benue a week ago. Newspapers reported that he was relocating to Benue State to ensure that the army is able to tackle headlong the challenges of insecurity in Benue State. Only for us to hear that he left the next day. Yesterday, the Inspector General of Police and the CDS were in Benue State. I doubt if anything will come out of this. I want to let Nigerians know that 12 local governments in Benue State are under siege. Out of the 23 local governments, the bandits have attacked 12 of these local governments from all parts of the state. There is an axis in Benue State which we call Sankara. It has 3 local governments. They produce much of the yams that we eat in Nigeria. Those local governments have been affected by this crisis, and they have not been able to go to farm, and we are already in June. My local government, out of the 15 council wards, Way West local government, out of the 15 council wards, 12 have been under siege. In fact, the entire local government have relocated to Naka, the headquarters of the local government. And so this is what we have been experiencing. Every now and then, statements are issued. You will see somebody, the chief of defense staff, chief of army staff, instructions will be issued. But before you know it, they go there, and before you know what is happening, they are back to base, and then attacks will happen again. And so, even though they have been to Benue State, and even the president is going there tomorrow, I hope that this time the government will be more proactive in ensuring that these attacks don't happen again. The responsibility of government, like you people reported, is to protect lives and property. Once the government is unable to do that, the bridges, the hospitals, and whatever they are doing will amount to nothing. And so if you need to visit these IDP camps and see what the people are going through. As far back as 2020, there was a study carried out by, funded by the Catholic Diocese of Makurdi, and I was commissioned to carry out that study. And I will make that available to you to read and appreciate what IDPs have been going through. I titled that work, From Home to Homelessness, the Dilemma of Internally Displaced Persons in Benue State. In that document, I was able to provide statistics of the people that are displaced in the camp, women, vulnerable, children, and so on and so forth, the sick, and some of the challenges they are facing, from homelessness, starvation, malnutrition, diseases, worsening poverty level, and child labor. That has been with us. There are children who were born in 2011 who have remained in IDP camps up to this point. A child that was born in 2011 is 14 years today and should be at least in JS1 or JS2. Those children sit in the 4 walls of classroom, and many of them have been compelled to go into child labor. Some of them are hawking on the streets. Some of them are now providing, labor as nannies to people all over the town. Once you are in Makurdi, once in a while, they knock at your gate, they come begging you for food. That is the dilemma of the people. So I hope this time, the actions of the president with his service chief and the Inspector General of Police, working closely with the government of Benue State, will be able to produce results and ensure that this, carnage is put to an end.
All right, Professor Ukase, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to stick with the president and hear directly from him. He's made the statement on Sunday evening, but then he also said something yesterday, and it's making a lot of us ask, who exactly are the parties involved in this situation? We'll take a break and we'll be back after this. Hello? Please go to Lolo's question, but come back to me. I will ask my question. I don't need it on the prompter. Then go to Lolo's question. Lolo, there. Then she'll pick up after me. Today's conversation is from farms to graves, the unfolding tragedy in Benue State. Our guest is Professor Patrick Ukase, as we're looking at the situation that happened over the weekend. Now, Professor Ukase, in a statement, the one you referenced, that the president put out on Sunday evening, he said, quote, political and community leaders in Benue State must act responsibly and avoid inflammatory utterances that could further increase tensions and killings. This is the time for Governor Alia to act as a statesman and immediately lead the process of dialogue and reconciliation that will bring peace to Benue, end quote. The president also spoke yesterday while inaugurating some projects in the FCT. Let's listen.
For the Benue people, I've spoken to the governor. The leadership and people of Benue should accept our condolences and tried hard, very, very consciously, to maintain peace, harmony among themselves. I've always said this, that we are one single huge family living in the same house, stay in different rooms, but living together in harmony will be the result of our diversity for prosperity. We should be able to manage our anger and frustrations. I sympathize those who have lost their life. I will adjust my program and go see Benue people on Wednesday.
Professor, the president says, one, he's adjusting his program to see the people of Benue on Wednesday. Two, that people should manage their anger and frustration. Three, that people should try to live in peace. We asked this question yesterday based on his statement about urging the governor to lead dialogue and reconciliation. Reconcile with who? People are coming in the middle of the night. They're locking people in their homes. They're burning children in their beds. They're wiping out entire families. People are shooting people. They're taking over land. Who exactly are the people of Benue supposed to sit across the table from and reconcile with? Having technical difficulties with this conversation. I really need him to answer that question, because who do you say should sit across the table from who? Are we talking about groups that have laid out demands? Are we talking about a group of people that have been wronged? How have they been wronged? Why are we pushing dialogue and reconciliation on the people who are losing their lives, on the people who are losing their ancestral homes, on the people who are losing their livelihoods? Why are we asking them to be the bigger people and seek to reconcile in dialogue?
Honestly, I find it a bit mind-boggling that you are even asking them to sit across the table. A group that we all call them, we just call them Fulani headsmen.
Or unknown gunmen.
Unknown gunmen. It's not like, oh, they have organized themselves and brought themselves out as a terrorist group or so to be named. Now you're asking the people who are wronged. Before you know what's up, they will say they have a reconciliation table they have created, and some people would show their faces that they are representing these people. And they would expect them to come to dialogue. Are we going to have the same thing that happened in Niger Delta here? That they will be offering amnesty to people.
Well, you're rehabilitating terrorists that have killed people, so I don't understand.
Is it going to become a norm?
The statement is obviously enabling, and it made analogy like, you can stay in one side. I cannot quote him verbatim, but he's saying you can stay here and the other stay, and you have a way to live together. This is not right. Even though I know this is a layered issue, this is bullying. It's
gaslighting.
It's
enabling.
Nah.
And this has been going on for years. It's not like this is a new attack.
12 out of 23 local governments is taking over the state.
It's creeping up. It's creeping up, and soon it's going to be the entire Benue State. Imagine what would happen if the entire Benue State were under siege. And when I say under siege, everything shut down. Every state is as important as any other state in the country. Whether you're at Lagos, whether you're in the southwest, southeast, every state is important. It's like a parent, yes, and every Nigerian. It's like a parent having, how many states do we have? 36. It's like a parent having 36 children. None is more important than the other.
None is more important.
If my mom is watching this, she would remember, because one of the stories she tells us growing up is having to experience the Ife Mudakeke War. And I really don't know how many local governments it took over, but the importance of experiencing that trauma. And this is 12 out of 23 local governments, and we are having conversations to sit across a table.
It's a bit, and now I'm saying, and now they're even saying that they should watch for inflammatory comments, and they should watch their mouths. People lost 20 family members. Tolu, if you're sitting across a table with such a person, how do you want to tell him not to shout?
You can't.
How can he maintain decorum?
He can't.
When he has lost an entire family to this kind. Honestly, I think that we have a lot of things. History has a way of repeating itself. And it's not the good history. It's the bad ones that just have a way of coming out again. And I'll start to remember how the Niger Delta issue played out in those times. And you will see a lot of them even went abroad to study.
Yeah, they were sent abroad.
Why people lost so much in all the things that happened in Niger Delta at those times. Are we going to have a time in our lives that Benue people will sit across a table with these unknown people who have caused this amount of devastation to their communities, their livelihood, their sense of being? I find, and it's a lot to take in, honestly.
We need to take a break here because there's also the conversation around a state of emergency.
Yes.
In early July, the governor said no. He said it was just about political conversations and political rhetoric in terms of those calling for states of emergency. And here we are, I said July, in early June, I beg your pardon. And here we are towards the end of June, and you have a massacre on your hands, probably one of the worst in recent history in Nigeria. A break. We'll be back.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about from farm to grave, and we have our guest with us, Professor Ukase, who we've been talking to. Professor, in early in the month, Benue Governor Hyacinth Alia firmly dismissed calls for emergency rule. State of emergency, he said no to it. It described the recent advocacy for such as politically motivated early in June. And, he detached himself from the current security realities that they are facing right now. With over 100 feared killed, over 100 to 150 families, including children, burnt to death in their own homes, and many more that we cannot even begin to account for. Would you not say this is a very viable situation that should make a state of emergency to be declared? Is this not bad enough? Or what needs to happen for that to happen?
Thank you for that question. First, I want to quickly touch on the issue of dialogue and reconciliation. I said I'm glad that the president is visiting Benue State. When he visits Benue State, let him listen to critical stakeholders. Let him listen to traditional rulers and get first-hand information on what is happening in Benue State. Let him know to so many information that we don't have. It's all shown that we don't have. Declaring is depending on the brief, the security intelligence that is before the president. So that is why I think that this meeting, the visit of the president is very important in resolving this issue. By the time the president visits Benue State and is able to make an assessment of what is happening, talk to critical stakeholders, listen to what has been happening, that will inform him, that will give him, the necessary input to be able to take the right decision. However, once the state of emergency is mentioned in Nigeria, governors become scary. Why? Because perhaps the president in Rivers State took what, in my own opinion, was a wrong dimension of the state of emergency. When you declare a state of emergency, you are basically talking about taking urgent steps to curtail some of the insecurity challenges that the environment is facing. But in Rivers State, the entire, democratically elected structures were sacked. We recall that President Jonathan declared state of emergency in the northeastern part of the country, but governors were not removed. It enabled the military to step in, sometimes impose curfews in areas, deny people certain rights, and then, tackle the challenges that they face. Now, the governor may be opposing what is called a declaration of a state of emergency because he feels that once that is done using the President Tinubu's template, it means that he's going to be out of office. So if there is need to declare a state of emergency, the president is in a better position to analyze the situation and take appropriate action. However, I don't think, and I strongly feel so, that in declaring a state of emergency, a governor and democratically elected structures should be removed from office.
All right, Professor Ukase, we have to leave it at that for now, but we are very appreciative of your time and, of course, also you speaking out. The people of Benue need our voices to continue to put pressure on the government to do what is necessary to safeguard their lives and property, and we look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
Thank you. And before we go, we started this with a conversation with Joshua Imaraye, who is in Benue State, and we started the interview with listening to one of the survivors. And we want to continue to center their voices in the midst of everything that is happening. And so before we leave, let's listen to another survivor of the weekend's attack.
On Friday night around 10 p.m. in line, we're all sleeping. So we heard gunshots. My people, my father, my stepmom, brother, wife, my siblings, they were sleeping down there. So they did not come out. Fulani had us attack the community, they started shooting.
So how many of your family members were affected?
There were 6 members.
6 in numbers?
Yeah.
Who are those people to you? Like, are they your brothers, sisters, mother? Just tell us how many, who are they specifically?
Yeah, one is my father, the other one is my stepmom, the other one is my brother wife, my elder brother wife. The 3 of them are my siblings and my followers. They're the ones that follow me. So they are attacked confront.
So from your family, you lost 6 persons.
Let's not also forget that youth were protesting these attacks and they were met with bullets and tear gas. Catherine.
All right, so we've heard the pain and we've traced the silence. We have unpacked the failure. Now we must carry the weight of responsibility because what happened in Yelewata is not just a tragedy. It's a loud indictment of how far too many lives in Nigeria remain unprotected and unheard. Communities are being erased, farms are being burned, and people are being buried, often without justice and without answers, and more so without the presence of the state. This cannot be normal. This cannot be our silence. This cannot be another forgotten headline. From the halls of Aso Rock to the fields of Benue, the question remains, who will protect the people when the government will not? Stories like these deserve more than a moment, more than a headline. They deserve a movement. Let's all keep asking the questions, demanding action until someone answers with justice. And that's Jasiri for today. We'll see you again tomorrow.